The red sun of Velora hung low on the horizon, bleeding its final light across the crystalline dunes. The wind carried shimmering particles that chimed softly when they struck the metallic hull of the ardent Voyager. Commander Elias Rourke stood on the observation deck, hands braced against the railing, staring at the vast alien expanse that had become both a battlefield and a sanctuary. He wasn't supposed to be here, at least not emotionally. The Galactic Command had strict directives about maintaining psychological distance from extraterrestrial species, especially those whose biology resembled humanity's too closely. Yet here he was, heart pounding in anticipation of a presence that seemed to echo inside him long before she appeared. A pulse of silver light flickered at the edge of the dunes. She was coming. Moments later, Lyra stepped into view, her form wavering like heat haze until it solidified into the luminous shape that haunted Elias's sleep. Her skin shimmered like polished moonstone, embedded with faint constellations that pulsed with her emotions. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed like strands of photon silk, drifting in slow waves despite the still air. "Commander Rourke," she said, her voice resonating like a chord played on an instrument too perfect to exist. He swallowed. "You can call me Elias. You know that." Lyra tilted her head, observing him with those prismatic eyes that seemed to unfold into infinite layers. "Names are complicated things for my kind," she murmured. "But if it comforts you, then yes, Elias." She stepped closer, stopping only when their hands were a breath apart. The first time they had made contact, even through gloves, Elias had felt a warmth that wasn't just temperature but emotion, memory, and something deeper. Something binding. "Did you discover anything at the excavation site?" she asked. He shook his head. "Just more fragments. More unanswered questions. But we'll find the source of the quantum pulse eventually." Lyra's expression dimmed slightly. "I wish your people were not so desperate to understand the catastrophe that brought you here." "It wasn't just a catastrophe," he said softly. "I would never have met you otherwise." Her eyes brightened at that, and for a moment the dying light of Velora seemed to merge with her glow. They stood there in silence, listening to the desert's crystalline hum. Elias felt the familiar tug in his chest, an ache he tried to suppress every time he looked at her. She was both impossibly alien and yet the closest thing to home he had felt in years. And tonight something in him finally broke free. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I wish I could marry you." The words escaped before he could stop them. They floated in the quiet like a fragile satellite, orbiting around hope. Lyra's light flickered once, twice, like a star struggling to remain steady. Her gaze locked onto his, and a ripple of color swept through her skin. Not warm hues this time. Colder ones. Fractured. "Elias," she said softly, "you do not understand what you are asking." He stepped closer. "Then help me understand. Care about you, Lyra. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time." Her expression changed, not in a human way but in the way the sky changes color before storm. "For humans," she said carefully, "marriage is a bond, a union, promise. For my species, it is something far more binding." "How binding?" he asked. Lyra pressed her palm to her chest. Beneath her luminous skin, her heart, or whatever organ served as one, beat in accelerating pulses of light. "When we bond," she said, "we merge life patterns, consciousnesses, memories. The boundary between self and other dissolves. Two minds become one existence, one being." Elias felt a shiver trace his spine. "You mean, you'd lose yourself?" "We both would. Permanently." He froze. He imagined her memories flooding into him, his fears dissolving into hers, their identities blending until no individual remained. For a moment he couldn't speak. Lyra continued, her voice fragile. If we bonded, Elias, you would not remain Elias. Not truly. The man who stands before me would cease. He shook his head. But we could be together. Together as one, she corrected. Not together as two. He stared at her glowing face. And if you bonded with me, what would happen to you? Lyra hesitated. My kind are not meant to couple with humans. Your neural architecture is unstable by our standards. The union could overwhelm me. I could lose coherence. I could unravel. The wind shifted, blowing glimmering particles between them like a curtain. Lyra, he whispered. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I did not think you would ask, she said quietly. Your species values individuality, freedom. I believed marriage between us was a concept you would never consider. He reached for her hand, hesitating inches away. So when I said I wished I could marry you, what did that mean to you? Her eyes dimmed to the color of a dying star. It meant you were willing to risk your life, your identity, everything you are. And Elias, I cannot allow that. He exhaled, the weight of heartbreak settling like dust in his lungs. So your answer, he said softly, is no. Lyra shook her head. My answer is that the price of yes would destroy you. Elias turned away, gripping the railing until his knuckles whitened. The desert shimmered below him, uncaring, endless. After a long silence, Lyra stepped beside him, her glow subdued. I cherish you, she said, in ways my kind do not have words for. But you must remain yourself. You are finite, fragile, beautifully so. I will not take that from you. He swallowed the aching knot in his throat. And what about you? Would it hurt you to stay away? She gave a soft, luminous smile that cracked his heart anew. Yes, but the hurt of losing you entirely would be far greater. The two stood together, separated by inches that felt like galaxies. At last Elias said, if we can't be what we want, can we still be something? Yes, she whispered. Something real, something rare, something that does not demand the end of either of us. Elias finally looked at her, and though the ache remained, something else flickered, acceptance. The sun dipped below the horizon, plunging Velora into twilight. Lyra extended her hand, and this time Elias took it. Her light pulsed softly, not a binding union but a shared moment. A connection that asked nothing more than presence. As the stars ignited above the crystalline desert, they stood hand in hand. Two beings from different worlds, united not by merging lives, but by choosing to hold on to their own. And in that fragile balance, Elias realized something. Sometimes love wasn't about becoming one. Sometimes love was about choosing to remain two.